All right, welcome everyone. It is very, very rainy here on the East Coast, so sorry if it's looking a little doom and gloom, but we're here and we're ready to go. So let's talk about one of the most frustrating toddler moments. When you serve food they usually love and suddenly they act like it's radioactive slime. Won't touch it. Don't want anything to do with it. If you've ever cooked a favorite meal only to have your toddler poke at it with one finger, make a face, and shout something like it's too slimy, let me know in the comments. Drop a yes because you are definitely not alone. Today, we're talking all about something that completely changed how I see toddler mealtime struggles. Because sometimes it's not about being picky, it's about how the food feels. So, welcome to Toddler Tip Tuesday Live. I'm Jess, and today we're breaking down why sensory struggles at mealtimes are often the real reason behind toddler resistance and what you can do about it. So, first let's talk about why sensory struggles matter at the table in the first place. Like, why do we care? It's because when toddlers refuse foods that they usually like, it's tempting for us to think they're either being defiant or it's pickiness, and we will mislabel toddlers as picky eaters. But for many, many toddlers, food isn't just about taste. It's a sensory experience. So it's about how it feels, how it smells, even how it looks or sounds when they chew it. When a food feels like wrong to their senses, their bodies can literally go into fight or flight mode, even if they happily ate it 2 days ago. So your key takeaway from this is that a lot of mealtime chaos isn't stubbornness. It's not the picky eating that we think it is. It's sensory overload. So I know you're thinking, all right, Jess, great. How do I recognize the difference between sensory struggle versus picky eating? So you're going to look for these clues. Toddlers who gag, shudder, or looked panicked, like not just mischievous, but like when they're presented with certain food, they look like panicked. That's a clue. If you notice meltdowns around textures like slimy, mushy, crunchy, sticky foods, it's another clue. If they suddenly have rejection of foods that they once accepted, especially like during growth spurts or after like busy overstimulating days, it's a clue it's sensory. So if you notice these or any types of patterns like these, it's likely sensory driven behavior. It is not bad behavior or picky behavior. So how do we navigate sensory struggles at mealtimes? So your first step to trying to tackle this is to first validate, acknowledge what your toddler's feeling without any pressure. Let them know it feels slimy to you. That's okay. I'm sorry that it feels slimy to you. So acknowledge what they're telling you. Your second step will always be to focus on exploration, not so much eating of the food, but like the exploration part. Let them touch, smell, move or push the food around. No pressure to eat it. So that will help greatly. And then you're also going to do exposure without the expectation of eating it, because that will build more trust between your child and food, but also between you and your child. Your third step is going to be to always offer a safe food. Which is including one familiar, comforting food to them at every meal. Something you know that they're going to eat pretty much no matter what. There's usually a couple that you can pick from that you know, like your go-tos. You could say, here's some bread that I know you love right next to the veggie, because you know they'll at least eat that, and it brings them a level of comfort as well to the food. So, your fourth step is, I'm losing track, is you're going to lower the stakes for them. So you want to keep your energy kind of light and casual, even if inside you're secretly freaking out because you've had a long day or whatever it might be and they're not eating something, and you're having, one of those struggles. you want to keep it calm and light for them. So you don't let them know. If you don't have to eat it, it's okay. You can just touch it if you want. You can just smell it. Those are important. Your fifth step then is going to be to kind of celebrate tiny wins. Like you want to, if they touch it, if they're willing to touch it, celebrate that. If they're not even at that point, if you can get them to at least smell something, it's a win. Praise them for it. And if they're willing to go above all of that, that's great. If they're willing to like lick it or whatnot, even if they do it making a stink face, it is still a win. So celebrate those wins, celebrate those successes. And just know that sensory progress, so overcoming some of these sensory struggles, it can be a long time to work through this, and you may end up needing, if it's like a true sensor, I don't want to say sensory processing disorder. I don't want to ever label kids, but if you feel like it's even more like it's constant, it's every day, all the time, it's definitely something you need to work on. And I would definitely speak to like your pediatrician about it. And they might be able to give you even more guidance and things like that. But if it's just the situation of you're trying to navigate picky versus sensory, a lot of this will work with most like sensory eaters. Now, keep in mind, sensory progress is built one small victory at a time though. So it might be a long haul to overcome some of these. And again, everything is dependent on your child. I always say this with everything. Nothing works 100% of the time with 100% of children. But it's a long process, and just keep at it. One victory at a time and keep celebrating. So some troubleshooting tips for you. So what do you do when these sensory struggles keep popping up? So if meal times are hard, like even when you're using these strategies, here's what you do. Kind of take a step back and go even smaller. Start with just looking at the food on the plate. It might seem silly, but for some kids who are truly like having, like they're inside their sensory systems are completely like flight or fight. Just looking at the plate is a win. So you're going to celebrate it. And again, it's going to depend on your child and kind of where you are on the spectrum of like how sensory they are, but you're not going to know until you try some of these strategies. But the second thing you want to try to do is use like playtime outside of meal times as like a sensory play to get used to like different textures, like Play-Doh or water play, sensory bins. You can even like write letters in yogurt or something like that. So there's no pressure whatsoever to eat whatever the food is, but so that they're interacting with it in a sensory way. That will kind of bring down some of those struggles for them. So that's another thing that you can do. You also want to, I just hit the table. Sorry, camera's shaking. Stay consistent. Always stay consistent. Sensory acceptance can take 10 to 20 or more exposures. Again, it's, your child, it's going to depend on your child. But let's just say like an average for like a not extreme sensory, but like kind of mid-range sensory, you're looking at 10 to 20 plus exposures. So you want to celebrate attempts, not outcomes, as much as you can. So even if they try and they don't quite get there, celebrate it. It will help in the long run. And just remember, toddler sensory systems will mature with time. So as they get older, as they have more exposures, they'll acclimate easier. They'll get used to different sensory input easier. So it will get easier for you. Basically, you're planting seeds kind of for future success. It's not going to be an overnight success. Like we said, it's the long haul. So just kind of keep that in mind. You're planting seeds for success for the future. Now, quick start plan for this week. What you can kind of think of. So today, not today. You're on the East Coast like us. It's after 8. But what you want to do first is start with offering safe foods alongside any new food, any challenging food, any food you think might be more of a sensory struggle for them. Offer that safe food. And then build from there. So after you do that for a day or two, a couple days, again, depends on your child, but when you start to notice they're a little more comfortable and you're going to start looking for those sensory reactions. Like Is it always to the same texture? Is it always to a similar smell? Is it something with like sound? Like some food has like when they eat it, they might not like the sound of like the crunch, right? So start paying attention to those and kind of making mental notes if you have to, post-it note it, and make note of it without judgment. Like just truly pay attention to what food you're noticing these reactions with. And then building from there, start with these little small exposures and focus on celebrating their exploration. Not necessarily the eating. If they get to that point, great. But you're going to celebrate the exploration part and focus on the exploration part. And then moving forward after that step, just remember, less pressure, lower pressure, stay consistent, and try to keep it playful. Because if you can lower that pressure, it will help lower the resistance that's coming from their sensory system. And just remember that for our little sensory friends, the goal isn't instant eating, it's creating comfort. It's creating curiosity for the food and connection. So you need those three things for them, for their bodies to start to lower that sensory wall, for lack of a better word in the moment. I'm tired, sorry, it's late. To get them to want to interact with the food. So now I'm going to open it up to some questions. As you know, if you join us every Tuesday, but this is something that goes out in an email blast, blog post to my subscriber list. I post about it on social media, but I want to make sure I answer some of those questions that came back. So I'm going to pull some of them up. All right, okay. So the first one was, I kind of already talked a little bit about it, but how do I tell if it's sensory overload or being picky? One, in addition to everything else we already said, one thing you can definitely do is body language. Their body language usually will start to you're going to notice a pattern, whether it's that panicky, the freezing up when they notice what's on their plate, the gagging at the same textures, whatever it might be. So kind of pay attention to their body language and see if you can kind of see it's more of a sensory overwhelm and they're not just pushing your buttons. They're not just testing boundaries. Another question was, what if my toddler still refuses to eat it even after they're touching or smelling the food? It's still a win, especially for a child that they're having the sensory inputs. They're having some struggles there. It's still a win. Still celebrate it, because sensory progress happens in stages. It's going to happen over time, and you're going to build on that willingness to smell it and then touch it, and then maybe they're willing to even bring it near their lips, and then maybe eventually they'll want to lick it. So you're building onto it, and I know parents hate to hear this, but it's with the sensory, it's not an overnight fix. It's more of a long stretch. Another question, sorry, I looked at my notes. Should I offer new foods separately or mix them with favorites? So I say, even if it's not sensory issue, always offer new foods or foods you're not sure how they're going to go alongside a safe food. Don't hide it and don't force it. Toddlers need to feel secure and comfort. If they don't feel that, they're immediately going to resist. So that safe food gives them that security and that comfort because there's something on their plate that they can eat. Someone else had asked about some good safe foods to use with sensory sensitivities. And usually bread is a good one. Just like a plain bread and plain crackers. You don't want it to be something that they're going to hold out for, though. So you don't want to make it something crazy like cheese doodles or something like that, like a snack, because then they're purposely going to hold out for it. But something small, like I said, like a bread, crackers. It could be pasta, although I know pasta tends to be a trigger for some kids, especially if it's cooked slightly different. You can think familiar fruits that they like bananas, whatever it might be, that they're willing to accept without stress usually. Kind of think those things. Someone had asked about how long to start seeing progress. So this is a hard question to answer, but I didn't want to just ignore it because I don't want to ignore anybody, but ignore anybody, but it is very individual. It truly depends on your child and how much sensory sensitivity is kind of going on in their body. But it's just expect small steps at first and celebrate those wins. And the big changes over time can sometimes weeks if it's not so bad. But it could even, might even be like at the months point for these gentle overtime exposures, but you will get there. And if it truly is becoming like an issue of like they're not eating anything or like screaming meltdown tantrums at every single mealtime and not eating anything, and you're like worried about like their calorie intake or their nutrition, things like that, like you need to then make sure you bring this up to your pediatrician. Because some kids, it is very, 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 very severe, and they can refuse to eat almost anything. But we're mainly focusing on kind of like the mid-range type. But if you think or fear your child might be one of those ones who's like severely, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your child. Their sensory system needs more time to process and mature in their body. But you definitely want to reach out to your pediatrician if that's the case. For like a kind of mid-range sensory, I would think anywhere from like weeks to months. But again, there's no clear-cut answer. Sixth question, someone had asked me on DMs, is it normal for sensory reactions to kind of come and go? They said that sometimes their toddler loves food and then they refuse it. And honestly, that's completely normal, especially with toddlers. Sensory sensitivities can change by the day based on if they're tired, what kind of day they've had. It can change based on their growth, like if they're in a growth spurt, if their body is already stressed from something else. The food could look slightly different for them that day. And that could slightly, change how they react to it. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong as a parent. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with them. It's just part of how their system is processing the world that day. Like, think about all the sensory input you get from every little thing, every light that's on, every single thing that I'm touching my desk. You can't see me, but like every single thing that you can touch, their little bodies have to process all that too. And they're just not quite as mature. So they can get overwhelmed a lot easier by a lot of things. And then last question, someone else had asked, let me just read my notes myself, sorry. Should I still serve food that they've reacted strongly to before? Yes. But with no pressure, and keep it casual and just keep offering it alongside the safe foods. I wouldn't be doing it like every single day, but I would definitely kind of keep it maybe like once a week, something like that. Again, it's going to depend on your child, but just those gentle repeated exposures are what are going to kind of help reframe it as not threatening food to them because it feels threatening to their body. So over time, it'll help break that down. So it's okay if you expose them quite a few times. And remember, because you're in that 10 to 20 plus range before they might be okay with it. So definitely keep exposing them to it, even if they've had a strong reaction in the past. Because it could have been something not food related sensory-wise, but it could have been they just had a very overwhelming day. Something else could have been going on. So keep that in mind too. All right, I think that was all of my questions. I'm just going to quick look and see if anybody dropped any questions for us. I don't see any questions, just some comments from someone. All right, so I don't see any questions. So I just want to thank you then so much for joining us. I also want to let you know that I have a free class, master class that is open right now for registration. It's probably closing in a day or so. Might open up some more slots next week, we'll see. But there is one tomorrow night at 8 p.m. There's another one on Thursday at 1:30 p.m. And it is all about 3 of the main triggers for toddler mealtime behavior. And sensory is one of them. So we will talk more about some of the sensory sensitivities in that training, give you more suggestions. But there's also some other triggers that we talk about. So we'd love for you to join us. If you want to join it, I will make sure that the link is in my bio, but you can also comment on any post of mine, the word meltdown, and it will trigger the link to be sent to your DM. So you can sign up that way. But it's also www.raisingmyteenagetoddler.com/mealtime meltdowns. And all one word, mealtime meltdowns, plural, is all one word. But you will be able to find it. Like I said, it might be easier just to grab it from the link in my bio, or comment the word meltdowns, and you will be able to get the link to the masterclass. But it should be worth a lot of value to you, especially if you're a sensory parent. But there's also some other triggers we're going to talk about, so we'd love for you to join us. But otherwise, don't forget, if your toddler melts down over food, it's not your fault. Just remember, it's not a failure. Their body's trying to communicate that something feels off inside. So keep that in mind, and know that you're not just raising an eater, you're helping them to build trust with their body and what's going on in their body and what they're feeling. And you're going to get through it one tiny moment at a time. So if you try any of this, make sure to tag me at Raising My Teenage Toddler. And I would love to see your success stories, or if you have any questions, let me know. And with that, thanks so much for being here for another Toddler Tip Tuesday live. I'll see you all next week. Until then, keep mealtimes playful, low pressure, and full of small celebrations. And again, don't forget to join us for that free masterclass. We'd love to see you. And that's it for now. Have a great week. Bye.